Today's headlines are brought to you by our friends over at Ease, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery. Pop over to ease.com to find out if your neck of California is allowing for legal cannabis delivery. They have all the state's various rules and regulations for where legal marijuana delivery is allowed baked right into their system. Take advantage of the extraordinary measures Ease takes to be on the right side of California state law by placing your order for cannabis delivery through ease.com, which is spelled E-A-Z-E. And don't forget, ease.com/blog is a great place to go to find valuable industry insight and analysis to read while you're waiting for your delivery. Whether you need legal California cannabis delivery or their helpful industry insight and analysis, Ease has you covered. Once again, just pop over to ease.com and ease.com/blog. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Thursday, March 27th, 2018, and you're tuned in to episode 455 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day is a good long-form piece by Leafly looking at the difficulties the California legal adult use industry is having in securing enough licensed marijuana supply, as most of the state's cultivators continue to exist outside the sanctioned system, dissuaded by the extra costs and logistical requirements fully licensed operators have to deal with. We've touched on this storyline a number of times over the last few months, but Leafly's latest piece does a good job of surveying this situation as it's playing out statewide. As with most of these Golden State stories, this one is worth the time for the full read, even if you're not involved in California yourself. Continuing on the theme established by our top story is an article in Green State about the door-closing difficulties small-scale edibles makers are facing in the new California legal adult use market. As Green State is reporting, California had close to 20 years where marijuana existed in a gray zone that offered a lot of leeway to small batch edibles makers to establish market footholds. As the rules and regulations of Proposition 64 went into effect in January, though, all of that changed in a big way. Steve D'Angelo of Harborside was quoted in the story saying he thought that 75% of existing edibles manufacturers will be wiped out at some point. This is another one you need to click over and read. There are a lot of lessons to be learned here. Rounding out the top stories today is a third long-form article, this time by Politico, about the Hood Incubator, a nonprofit organization based in Oakland, California that works to increase participation by Black and brown entrepreneurs in the legal cannabis industry. Regular listeners should be familiar with the Hood Incubator by now, as in full disclosure, our sponsor Ease is a financial supporter of the Hood Incubator, which I've mentioned a few times in ad spots. That played no part at all in my decision to slot this one into our top stories today. The issue of racial injustice and equality is one with deep roots within the legal marijuana movement, and it's incumbent upon all of us to keep that front of mind. That's why it's so great to see states like California and Massachusetts incorporate social justice policies into their legal cannabis systems. For instance, people living in Massachusetts that have been most negatively impacted by the historically racist war on marijuana will have the first chance to secure marijuana delivery and social use licenses when they become available. Politico's piece on the Hood Incubator and the larger social equality efforts within Oakland and California at large does a good job unraveling this complex issue. So again, I'd suggest opening it up to read in full. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor Ease, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery. Since Ease only partners up with top-notch dispensaries in their active areas, Ease customers get a wide variety of top-notch products to order for delivery. And because Ease is super strict about staying in compliance with California state law and diligent in making sure all their dispensary partners do as well, Ease customers benefit from knowing that everything found on Ease is safe, fully tested, and properly labeled. That's really important, especially in these early days of California legal adult use. Don't trust your legal cannabis delivery dollars to anyone but the best. In the Golden State, that's an easy choice. You just fire up ease.com, spelled E-A-Z-E. And ease.com/blog is where you go for all sorts of helpful and valuable legal marijuana industry insight and analysis. That's ease.com and ease.com/blog. All right, time for the Blitz. Nevada just released stats for how well their legal marijuana industry did in January, and while the numbers were lower than December's haul, they were still well above state projections. In all, $32.8 million in legal adult use sales were made in Nevada in January, down from $35.8 million the month before. The state had projected just $24 million in sales would be made in January. So far, in the first 7 months between the start of the industry last summer and January of this year, Nevada has brought in just under $23 million in tax revenue. Yesterday, the Kansas House of Representatives rejected by a vote of 54-69 a measure that would have legalized medical marijuana. The Kansas City Star is reporting that there was a lot of emotional testimony from medical marijuana patients and advocates ahead of the vote and thinks the close tally indicates that it's only a matter of time before the law is actually changed. In Massachusetts, there's discussion around the fact that people holding medical marijuana dispensary licenses who haven't yet been able to open will be among the first in line to get adult use dispensary licenses later this year. Right now, there are 101 medical marijuana license holders who have so-called provisional certificates of registration, which means they just haven't opened up shop yet. Under the rules and regulations being put forth by the state's Cannabis Control Commission, those 101 dormant medical marijuana license holders will be included in early rounds of adult use licensing. There are certainly good arguments to be found on both sides of this issue, so I'd add this one to your list of stories to jump into fully. Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is getting behind industrial hemp and said yesterday that he will introduce the Hemp Farming Act of 2018, which would legalize the cultivation and processing of industrial hemp by separating it out from adult use cannabis. The New York Times does a good deep dive on marijuana cultivation in the Netherlands, which has a weird marijuana industry that allows for the legal dispensing of cannabis, but not the cultivation. Dutch coffee shops have long had to rely on the illicit market to buy the cannabis that they're internationally known for selling. Thankfully, Dutch lawmakers are recognizing just how silly that is, especially in the face of progressive marijuana legalization reform here in the States, and there are moves within the government to create a more regulated system. In a day packed with good longer form pieces, the Washington Post adds to the list with a look at how Washington, D.C.'s legal marijuana market is operating. We've touched on this storyline a number of times as it's popped up in other states like Maine and Massachusetts, but right now D.C. officials are dealing with the emergence of pop-up marijuana markets where customers and vendors engage in shammy transactions where one might buy a glass jar for $50 that just so happens to have an eighth of cannabis within. Or you might buy a football playing card for the same amount upon entry to one of these markets, which you can trade for some amount of cannabis products from a vendor. There have been police raids, but few actual prosecutions. This is a story that's only going to last as long as there are legislative gray zones, which hopefully isn't too long, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. And finally for today, Denver Westword reports on a study recently released that found that legal cannabis did not play a significant part in the rise in the number of homeless people living within Pueblo County, Colorado. The notable part of the story is the public denial and rejection of the study's findings by prohibitionists within Pueblo County, including members of the law enforcement community. Denver Westword spoke to one of these study's authors about those denials, who said, more or less, that it's hard to confront facts that are contrary to your worldview. The plight of all good diehard prohibitionists. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Ease, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. one take.